Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and welcome to another episode of Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. If you don't know, the basic idea is I cover crypto-related news stories, filtering out any price talk-related stuff, and just giving you, hey, here's what's going on with these companies, these jurisdictions, these countries, these regulators, these crypto companies, whether it be hacks or some techie stuff. And yeah, so far it has seemed to work out to stay away from the price talk and just do it like that. So I'm gonna keep going forward into 2024. And by the way, happy holidays for the folks who are celebrating the Xmas or whatever else you're doing. Let me say that off break. Also, pardon if you are hearing music in the background. My neighbors didn't decide to play stuff until I started recording just now. Anywho, I got a number of stories, not as many as last week was, but I jump around a little bit here and there between the States, Latin America, Europe, Africa, and we also hit Asia. So yeah, basically, it's definitely some confirmations on some of the things I've been saying earlier this year and last year. All right, so let's jump into these stories. So before I jump into this first story, let me say, if you don't know, I'm letting y'all know, this segment is brought to you by CJ the Smart Guy. He is a certified CPA. That means he's a tax professional as the government sees it, right? I'm not telling you this as far as financial advice, me being a CPA or me getting a kickback, because there's no referral link. There's no, get $10 off, none of that going on. The reason why I am bringing him on in regards to this capacity is because he's a tax professional, and in full disclosure, he actually is my CPA, and he knows his stuff. There are a number of CPAs and tax folks who will say that they can do taxes and stuff for you if you're like somebody who's involved in crypto, and it's not going to be a problem. Not everybody's on the up and up when they tell you shit like that, just point blank, because they may never have even used the wallet, and they just might have jumped on it last year because they paid the fee for the software that does the calculations and stuff for you. I'm just saying, here's somebody who I know knows what he's talking about in this space. Okay, if you've been in the chats on the live for the 10 a.m. show, you've seen CJ here and there. The man is definitely busy doing his thing. And again, it ain't no kickbacks, it ain't no referral link stuff, but I do have the link in the comment for it. So if you are looking for this particular resource or some information, the link's in the comments. All right, so let's jump into this first story. So I seen this and I was like, wait, what? Arthur said, okay, so for those who are new, the basic idea is that I'm not going through the articles full on anymore. I'm just going off the headlines and giving you the summary as I understand it. I'm not necessarily 100% right. Sometimes I might forget things that I had wanted to say when I initially looked through the article, and then sometimes I'll go in a whole different direction than what I actually thought of to say the first time. Other thing to note is links will always be in the description for this, but it doesn't guarantee that the way the article is presented now is what it will be by the time you try to go and look at it. It might not even be there depending on what the article is and who platform it is, because sometimes they'll take down articles, sometimes they'll change words and stuff. So just letting the new folks know. Other thing is, thank you for the folks who have been coming back. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for the lurkers. I know for the scammers and stuff, hey, we in the season. I appreciate y'all too. Hopefully folks are doing their due diligence to not get caught out there by y'all. Sorry, but not sorry. So here's this story here talking about Arthur Hayes. I've been saying this ever since the summertime, like, especially when he walked away with the BitMEX situation in the SEC. The man is an underutilized thought leader in this space. Granted, he was coming off very braggadocious in the earlier days, but if you listen to his stuff now, like he's presenting different. And granted, his blogs haven't changed. Like, he's still talking his stuff and like putting down some real interesting scenarios and stories. This is one of those examples of, he says some stuff in here talking about what happens if the ETF comes in. What are the financial institutions, the family trust, the banks, the TradeFi folks, what are they going to do to vacuum up all of the Bitcoin and then hold it, which is going to mess up the Bitcoin velocity, which is the same thing as money velocity. So that means you would have an issue as far as liquidity is concerned. Why? Because they have to have the hard asset in order to be able to do what they want to do with the rehypothecation and derivatives off of the hard asset. That's how the system is set up, right? You got to hold X amount of the stuff for the hard asset in order to do this derivative ETF stuff. He makes a point, though, that says, if the ETF comes in, expect to see the major players vacuum up as much Bitcoin as they can. And there's a number of the stories that are in this that I'm going to jump through, and I'm going to like throw into connections. So hopefully it makes sense to some of y'all. I'm not saying this is financial advice. I do always put this filter in of, this is how things scratch my brain. So when I say IMM, I'm saying in my mind, here's my interpretation of this article. It doesn't mean I support what the article publisher, who they are. If you've been following me, you know I kind of tear up stuff at times. So don't take any of the products, companies, and names as endorsements of the people, places, or things unless I specifically say that. Like, specifically. Like, I got a story on Ledger. I think Ledger's on the out list for me now going forward. And I'm gonna tell you why when I get to the story. So anywho, basically Arthur is like, it isn't even gonna be the government comes in and makes it illegal. It would be they get the ETF, and then the big players basically look to scoop up and vacuum all of the Bitcoin, and then they slow down the velocity of it so there's no liquidity. And then that starts their way of the manipulation stuff. Pardon me. So now, he doesn't say that this is an absolute to happen. He's just saying like, here's a possibility, a possible scenario of how it could happen. Did I use a clickbait title in regards to Arthur and having tea on Blockroute? Yeah, I did. Because Arthur said something that I've been saying to y'all for the last couple of weeks about Hong Kong and how stuff is playing out over there. And if you've been listening to the stories the last couple of weeks, I've been saying Hong Kong a lot. No Hong Kong story today because, you know, we in the season and stuff. So the stories definitely weren't that much for what I had to filter through. But Hong Kong, via the C state, which is a part of the mainland, has been doing a number of moves within their digital asset playground, their financial sandbox, and that's Hong Kong. And so him saying something like this is like, I imagine he either is seeing a trend of something or an indicator, or he's had some conversation that has him going, okay, something's going to happen and there's going to be a triggering point, and then you're going to see all of the big dogs do some stuff. It might not lead to the quote destroying Bitcoin, but it will definitely change the landscape of the Bitcoin crypto space going forward. That's my point why I'm sharing this story. So take from it what you will. I'm not saying it to you as a price talk thing because I'm more concerned about what does it mean to the access of the technology, the underlying technology. We'll see in time. Next story. This joint happens. All right, so last 2 weeks, I've been covering the story of that case. The company's out in California. The judge calls the SEC lawyers in and is like, yo, y'all been lying. What's going on? You told me you needed to get the assets frozen for this exchange because they were closing down and it looked like they were moving funds around. Last week it comes out, the SEC replaced the entire lawyer team, the prosecution team, and put in new people. And then it was like, hey, judge, we need some time to get everything together. And now it comes back. They go, oh, well, you know, we kind of made a mistake. And man, you know, it's so messed up that we made a mistake. And yeah. Now, initially, I was giving the judge kudos for calling them out to a degree. But from what it looks like in this article, again, link will be in the description, the judge was talking and they were just like, well, you know, my bad, it's our bad, but we here now. There's no talk of like, hey, we'll give back, you know, we'll release the assets or anything like that. We'll unfreeze the stuff. There's none of that. And so now what happened is the defense team is applying for a dismissal saying, hey, they were definitely not doing their job right. We shouldn't get held for this and you should dismiss this. We'll see what happens. Again, it still goes to the thing of if the leadership at the SEC is colluding with the congressional folks, i.e. the FOIA request that came out about Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler having communications on how they would talk during the official subcommittee bank hearing, why do you think that when they go into court cases, they would do everything above board? That's my thought process. That's my question on it. Why would people expect them to do everything above board? Which then gets into the point of why, like, I would, and I've said this before, somebody to set up doing a FOIA request for every person who sits on a financial committee of any type. Every time there was a hearing with the SEC, FinCEN, CFTF, JP Morgan and all of them, so all of the banking folks, FOIA requests for all of them. All of them. And let's see what the transcripts look like. Let's see who's been communicating with who. Right? Because at the end of the day, they're colluding, the evidence comes out, and then we still just move on something like, oh, well, okay, whatever. An example here is the judge basically said they could be, you know, some serious consequences to it. But the guy who's like the general inspector for the SEC was like, yeah, you know, sorry, we didn't, you know, present our best foot forward, but, you know, we're going to do better next time. That's it. That's that court case right there, which again shows the level of just like arguably audacity of how the system, how the SEC in particular is working. Like this to me shows the pattern of behavior. It shows the pattern of mindset. It shows that they're not playing fair and they're moving along the lines of their agenda of we'll deal with asking for forgiveness versus permission in how we handle these cases. That's my thought process. You don't have to agree with me. If you don't agree with me, comments is always open. I do appreciate the pushback. I promise. Now, jumping into this next story here, there is a petition that is being put out by change.org, I think it is. Yeah. So it was initiated by change.org, but it's through the Chambers of Digital Commerce. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of them because they talk about financial inclusion, but they really only mean it if you're like in American grace. And so in my mind, if you're telling me that crypto is supposed to be about true financial inclusion, financial freedom, being permissionless, and all of that, you know, fun stuff, ideals, you can't then say caveat, or let me say filter, or let me say, however, if you're an American, if you follow what the US says, like, then we're not talking the same language, in my opinion. But basically, there's a petition that is going around to counter what Elizabeth Warren is looking to push. A couple of senators have already signed on it. I don't think they're necessarily the major senators who would have sway and influence with the others. But this has been put out. So let me say it this way. I give a hand clap for community policing in a general principle. Shout outs to the folks over at the Digital Commerce, the Chamber of Digital Commerce, and the folks over at change.org. But at the same time, my understanding of their politics and their affiliations in particular, I'm not 100% on board with them being the ones to lead the charge, but I am glad that someone is pushing back on Elizabeth Warren. Hopefully this is a good faith thing and they're not like just doing the dance right now and then 6 months, 9 months down the road, they switch up on some stuff. I'm hoping that's not the case. Not saying it is. I'm just saying we've seen interesting and funny enough things happen here within the American political environment and system of like who knows who, right? So yeah, that happened. What was the other thing? Was it? Hold on, let me make sure. I'm waiting to see. Yeah, so there's I'm gonna put the link in the what you call it for folks who are interested in actually reading what they're saying. I'm gonna put the link in there that you can go through if you're interested in signing. I'm not telling you have to sign. I'm not endorsing that you do sign. I told you how I feel about these organizations. Do your own due diligence and see if you agree with what they're doing and how they're moving, and you know, use your own judgment. But I will make the link available in the description. All right, so jumping into this next story, Minecraft crackdown on crypto and NFTs, but WorldCoin integration is fine. So I've made the comment a number of times about how technology companies go through cycles and patterns of behavior for their development, for their acquisition of other companies for the IP or for the talent, right? Microsoft is no different in what they're doing right now with this. The way that they are framing it in the article is Microsoft is basically saying, we didn't want any of the crypto stuff because it would mess with the user experience. What they're not saying is Microsoft is okay with WorldCoin because there's a push that is beyond bigger than Microsoft and WorldCoin. WorldCoin might be an implementation of it, but the push to de-anonymize the internet as well as make using the internet require a digital ID. So imagine you have it that the user base of this platform is sizable enough that WorldCoin thought it was, I honestly think it might be part of an experiment phase in regards to what they're doing with Minecraft. The point being is Minecraft basically is like, yo, we cool with WorldCoin doing it. And they say it as the coin that WorldCoin has isn't needed to use the technology. So for me, the signal is, oh, so you want the digital identity because the way WorldCoin works for your biometrics is it scans your iris and makes a unique QR code. So imagine how primal, how how base level being able to identify somebody at that level and then track their footprint through all of the internet. And there's no, oh, that's not me. Somebody used my state ID. No, this is a scan of your retina. Now, is there a whole other thing about like, you know, swapping stuff out within the servers and the back end and blah, blah, blah? There might be some stuff going on there. But point being is, if you know about the history of Microsoft and how they acquire technology and how they'll do things where they'll see a competitor doing something, they'll come up with their crappy version of it and then put it in the package of like the Microsoft Office, Microsoft 360 stuff, even though it's a crappy version of that thing. Or they'll let something develop and then just come and buy the whole thing up. I think this is the play going on here because they want the data that is that level of biometrics. Because Microsoft has nothing now that gets it to that level of knowing who its user base is and being able to track the user base through all of the internet as what is the potential intention of how WorldCoin is supposed to be used going forward because of the biometric information they collect. So this is going to be an interesting / scary story to kind of watch and see how it plays out going forward. But again, it goes to this point of there's a movement to make using the internet require digital identity. Just throwing that out there, something you might want to look into down the road. All right, this next joint. All right. So I had to laugh when I seen this story because in one of the groups I'm in, somebody was saying something about the Salana stuff, and then we were going back and forth, and they're like, yeah, but Salana's going up in price and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, if the phones work anything like it does for what they were doing last year and during C19, like, nah, dog, I'm good. Why would I use a product for a company that doesn't, Salana is doing things that a lot of the newer folks will agree with as far as like the speed and this and that. But like when you talk to the older heads and it's like, hey, you're not supposed to be able to turn your blockchain off and on. If you can turn it off and on, then stop calling it the blockchain. How about that? How about stop using it? Stop saying it's that type of protocol. Let me stop before I start like ranting on them. The point being is they basically took people's money and they were making orders for more phones than they had. Or at least this is how it's being framed as far as what they're telling Decrypt. Hey, the issue was we had third-party vendors. There was an issue going on with them. We were still taking in orders. Things weren't coming in fast enough. And then we had an issue where we had to stop the whole thing. So right now, there's only 20,000 phones apparently out in the, quote, wild. What happened was, okay, not what happened. What later comes out after they're like basically selling out. Remember, they launched the store last year. It didn't make a full year as far as the store being open. I don't think it made a full year. And then they were running into issues where the sales for the phone were looking crappy. And so what they did was they came up with the airdrop thing. And it turned out that the airdrops were worth more than the phone. And so people started grabbing more than one phone per order, figuring out how to do it. I don't know what they was doing to do it, but some people figured it out. And so even if the phone cost 500 and change, the airdrops and everything that went with it for incentives was like $3K, right? So, all right, that's only 1/5 or something of, I know my math is off, but don't judge me. It's a low amount. The return for the airdrops and the other incentives made the 5 and change for the phone worth it, even though technically it was a crappy phone. I don't know if y'all know who the dude Marquise is. He's one of the OG like YouTuber dudes, and he basically voted the phone as one of the most like worst phones ever. And he said basically, even with the incentives, it wasn't worth getting the phone. Like as a phone, it was a crappy phone. He didn't even really get into the wallet stuff. Just in general, it was a crappy phone. And if you already see how they operate the blockchain, 9 times out of 10, the wallet ain't going to be all that neither. That's at least my thought process. The bigger thing here to me is I think they did a money flip on people. Because what I noticed in this article is it doesn't cover how many orders were taken. It only tells you that there were 20,000 phones that were supposed to be shipped out because that was the initial first order. My question is, how many orders did y'all take above the 20K? And then they're saying, oh, well, we'll refund people. 9 times out of 10, they're going to change their terms of service in regards to how they have to pay you out to make you whole. So there might be something. And if you're a Salana person, comments is open. Please hit me up in the chat right now, and we can go from there. But this to me is just like another one of those like, yo, it's a different mindset. It's a different way. Like these folks are moving to chase the bag, and in my mind, there are some cool aspects to Salana. Yes, it's fast, but if we're talking about comparing it to like what the ideals of crypto are supposed to be of, we're supposed to have access, trust but verify, like don't do things that are like sideways underhanded. I think in my mind, just for how this looks, it isn't being told in full truth what happened. So here's the other thought, right? You're telling me you had all of these smart people come up with this program to do the airdrops and how you utilize the phone and and nobody thought of how people would game the system when they realized that the phone only cost 500, but the incentives was like 5 times the phone value. Really? And then y'all didn't do something in the online portal for ordering to cap it at the 20K versus continually taking the money. To me, that don't make sense. You can't have that many quote smart people in the room and nobody saw those two things. That's my thought process. I could be wrong. Again, not financial advice, not a CPA, not a lawyer. If somebody got something different, comments is open. You could check me. All right, jump into this next story. So Bloxroute to reject blocks by OFAC flag transactions. Now, I've been talking about OFAC for a hot minute. Like, I'm getting tired to a degree of talking about them. OFAC is under the U.S. Treasury Department. Bloxroute is an American company. The basic idea is they are one of the validators on the Ethereum network. Now, what I did not know when doing this was that, where is it at? So the basic idea is Bloxroute is saying, hey, we're going to be compliant. We're following the rules. You know, we're being good boys and girls here. And so the basic idea is, ladies and gentlemen, we are literally watching a 51% attack happen at the protocol level, right? And this is a matter of, if you can get enough of the nodes, the validators, to not take transactions, right, to not process them, to not accept them, eventually the blockchain's record and who has the longer record changes. Why? Because X amount of the nodes aren't accepting all of the transactions, which means that they're building their block length faster than the ones that are taking all of the transactions. So this could be a real screwy situation down the road. If you've been listening to me talk on this stuff for like over a year now, I think I'm going into year 2 actually now, as far as doing weekend crypto. I've been talking crypto shit for way longer. But in regards to doing weekend crypto, I've been saying stuff and saying like, they're moving the needle. They're doing things. And when I say they, I mean regulators, I mean bureaucrats, I even mean founders of companies, because some companies are about the early ideals of Bitcoin and crypto. Some founders and companies are totally not, right? And so with that being said, Blockroute, they want to keep their business. They want to try to stay open as long as possible. Why? Because they got investors. They got people on the back end who expect a return. They sit in a position where they're doing something that is supposed to, you know, work for them and what their direction is. So, of course, they're not trying to get shut down in a month. So they're going to play ball and do it for as long as possible. Do I see them being a year 2025, 2030 company? Not really. But, you know, everybody got to do their part to get their bag, I guess to say. I'm not judging. I might be smudging, though. Yeah. All right. So there's a site that I discovered in reading this article, and I'm going to share it with y'all now. This is called Mewatch. Again, this was brought up because Blockroute deals with stuff related to Ethereum. Now, I was going through the list. This basically is the post-merge OFAC compliant blocks, basically like how much of the node network is actually following the list. Again, this is showing we're looking at a slow motion through law enforcement, through enforcement of law via compliance of a taking over of a blockchain network. This is what we're watching. And this is us going through it here in the States. It's not a matter of like the other countries and jurisdictions are necessarily working in the same way, but this is what's going on here in the States. So yeah, right. Check this website out when you can. It is interesting to see how they break stuff down. Where's it at? I was going through the list and where are they at? Hold on. Okay, hold up. I think I was at that. Where are you? Oh, also to note, Kraken is now on the list. Bitstamp is on the list. We knew they was going to be on the list, the Celsius Network folks. But who really surprised me? Ledger Live. Ledger Live is Ledger. I said earlier before about I think this is the thing that's going to get me to walk away from Ledger. This is what I was talking about. Granted, I don't do none of the extra fancy shit. But in my mind, the idea of if you guys value the business and, you know, following things the way that it is, all right, you know, do what you do as your business. It's just, we don't have the same alignment anymore. And I don't see your product being a good fit for me. So for me, ledgers are eventually going to go into the garbage. And that's just my thing right now, right? I'm not telling nobody to follow me on what I'm doing. Do your own due diligence and research. Again, this website counts as a resource tool. I'm going to have the link for it in the description. So jumping over to this next story, users cry foul as MexC freezes assets and blockchain accounts. So what is up with this one? This one is basically an exchange, basically froze a number, like a serious number of their users' accounts, saying that it basically triggered like some questionable activity. And then because that was triggered, it basically locked the users' accounts. The way that they describe it and like how they kind of go back at the community when they start voicing their issues on Twitter it makes me wonder if they weren't doing stuff on the back end with the user's crypto or the user's assets, and so they did something to figure out how to like get X number of the accounts that would equal to the value of what was being messed up on the back end. And I'm only saying this because of the way that they argue back of, hey, well, in our terms of service, it says that we can do X, Y, and Z, and you signed that. That's literally how they're defending this. It's not a, well, you know, we had a glitch error, or here's the things that triggered you having these types of the system saying, hey, something's going on funky with this account. So yeah, that's my take on it. This is an indicator in my mind that's like, maybe somebody might be trying to exit. Maybe. I don't got a confirmation on this, but it is a question of maybe somebody's trying to exit, or they was messing around on the back end, and so, or they might have seen like activity where folks are trying to pull off of the exchange, and this might be an indirect surge protector for a run on the exchange. Yeah, so ROE. Yeah. But nonetheless, I'm not confirming that. I'm just saying in my mind, this is the thought process for me. If you're just going to run back, it's yo, you know what this is like? All of my military folks. It's like when you an E4 and then you see an E7 do something, right? And then you call them on it. Like they'll do something and they'll be like, yo, that wasn't even warranted. Like, why would you do that? And then just because you said something, they hit you with the, yo, lock it up. I'm an E7. You nothing but an E4. You address me as Sergeant First Class. It's like, whoa. Like, hold on. You still did something messed up, dog. Your rank don't matter. That's this situation. But you know, if you take them to court, like arbitrage and that whole thing, oh, you signed the terms of service. Like, well, you agree to that. So yeah, bad practices. I don't know. I'm actually surprised more folks didn't say something sooner, because I imagine that there were other indicators going on prior to this week that were like, hey, something's happening on this platform. Folks might want to start moving their stuff around or like protecting themselves. All right, so this story happened. It's not necessarily a story. It's more of a commentary on here's what Brazil and Samba is looking to do as far as like the Rio de Janeiro and all of that stuff is being a new crypto hub in the global, well, the Latin America region, so South America, so LATAM, if you know what I'm talking about. I said it a couple weeks ago, not a couple weeks, but like last week I think, because what was it? Brazil is on some like, hey, if you're a Brazilian resident citizen, we're going to charge you more if you use foreign exchanges. If you use the local exchanges, you're going to get charged less on your taxes. But if you go foreign exchanges, we're going to hit you with more. And I said it then, as far as the indicator, hey, countries are going to start beating their citizens over the head on the tax front. Part of it is going to go at the citizens or retail level. Part of it is going to go at the corporate level. And the corporate level is going to be about like the tax incentive for you to be able to, how you're counting. Is it first in, first out, first in, last out? Like that's going to be the corporate side. As far as the people retail side, the way it's looking like is basically the retail folks is getting charged a higher end if you mess with something that's outside of your jurisdiction, like your country's jurisdiction. That's what the pattern looks like to me, or the trend of it looks like. And so the idea here is Rio de Janeiro wants to start like turning into a Bitcoin beach over in Costa Rica, or like the joints that's going on in Puerto Rico, which arguably is a good thing as far as there's going to be foreign money that comes into the country. But what it means for the local people is not the same thing that it would mean for the people who are coming in as expats and what do they call them? What do they call them? Digital nomads. Because once those folks starts coming in and they're coming in with the money, the local people who have the position of I own a business or I have real estate, they're going to jack up the prices, which eventually affects the people who are not actual business owners, right? Who don't have official real estate positions. Now, it doesn't mean that like, you know, the street vendor, the street performers, or like the quote non-official business sector, folks aren't going to find their way to make their money. But arguably, Brazil is looking to turn into what Puerto Rico's joint is and Costa Rica's joint, and is it El Salvador? El Salvador. Like they're going to push themselves in. They're going to develop into that same scenario. The real estate's going to go crazy. The local people are going to get pushed out. It's going to have its own growing pains to this. And I'm not saying this as though it's 100% a bad thing or 100% a good thing. The article doesn't frame it in that context. But I'm saying it is something to be aware of. Like, remember when we were talking about crypto is supposed to be borderless, smart contracts are supposed to be permissionless, they can operate and go anywhere. But as we move year for year, we keep finding these countries, these jurisdictions, these governments, these founders, these corporations are finding ways to make silos, are finding ways to centralize, are finding ways to exclude different groups or segments of people for whatever reason. Brazil is going to work into that same direction. I don't know what else to say on that one. But if you're down in Brazil, if you know some stuff, hey, comments is open. I appreciate the pushback. So this next joint, Argentina, financial minister. Financial contracts can now be denominated in BTC. So there's a number of things that really scratched my brain on this. And then when I read the article, I've heard this lady's name mentioned in passing in something I was listening to this week. I keep telling y'all, like, when it comes to the idea of like, how are you cross-reference the information of what you're processing of what's going on here in the US with crypto and blockchain, and then like what's going on around the globe, right? It's moving in different ways, and whether you're talking the non-quote regulatory side of it or the regulatory side of it, it's different paces happening for different jurisdictions. So the dude who's the new president of Argentina, I honestly don't know how to make heads or tails per se of his character. On one hand, he says that he's not going to allow Argentina to join the BRICS, which is what is the BRICS? The what is it? Brazil, Russia, the R state, India, the C state, and then South Africa, right? And then there's a number of countries that are going to join in next year. It's like another 6 of them that are going to join in next year. Argentina's like, no, we're not going to do it. And he appoints this lady. Her name is, what is her name again? What is her name? Minister Diana Mondino. So he appoints her to be on the so he basically appoints her to be like, hey, I want you to sit in this position as it relates to the crypto stuff. And from what I've heard, it's either her or the guy that's going to be his finance minister. I don't remember exactly, but it's one of them that connect either to the IFM or connect to the WEF. It's one of the bottom line is, for as much as they're touting him to be a pro Bitcoin guy and be different than, you know, the folks at the top and who are pulling the strings, the people around him and who he's putting into certain positions don't seem to be those kind of pro Bitcoin people. With this lady's appointment, or at least her announcement of stuff, it made me wonder, would she be, because she also has the academic background and she's seen as like this crypto Bitcoin blockchain expert person, and it read almost very similar to Gary Gensler, where it's like, oh yeah, you know, she was teaching such and such at blah 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 university and she's doing it for this number of years and now we brought her into the government. It makes me wonder, just scratching my brain, will she be that version? I don't know. We'll see how things go forward. I've seen something else too where people are like, oh, they're going to be like, you know, the Central African Republic of making Bitcoin legal tender. And it's like, yeah, but look how that's worked out. Literally haven't heard nothing about that in the last like 2-3 months. And that announcement was out during the summertime or before the summertime. I don't know how to call what is going on with Argentina, but the way that their new president dude is moving, it doesn't, I don't know. It's kind of hard to read, because on one hand, like I said, he said he wasn't going to do BRICS, but then he said he was going to devalue the dollar. And then now it turns out he's doing something that's like devaluing the peso. And then they just lost the deal with the C state for the fiat exchange thing that they were going to do. It wasn't that much money, but like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to read what's going on there. We'll see what's going on. Definitely things will start kicking off, you know, in the first quarter. Like something's going to happen and it's going to be like, oh, there it is. See it. All right. So what's this one? Oh, this one, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it was, honestly. So basically, Wright ordered to pay $1 million as lawsuit takes new twist. So the basic idea behind this is he's in the British court system suing the Bitcoin core developers and a couple of other people, saying, hey, I'm the real Satoshi and here's my evidence. Your man basically came to court and said, I have new evidence. I found 2 hard drives like a week or 2 ago, and they have proof of this coding language that you need to be able to do certain things in writing out the code. This man has been fighting this for how long now? And he just came out with this. I found these 2 USBs in a drawer in my house. I forgot they were there. Like, this is the stuff that makes you go like, I get that he has patents on stuff, but for the number of years that this dude has been fighting, like, I am mind blown that folks aren't just calling him out to be like, yo, somebody's backing you. There's like, it makes no sense to me how you can still be fighting court cases for this long and then this many of them. So the bottom line was he makes this argument to the judge, and then he's telling the judge that he can't, quote, make it in person, but he still wants to be able to do X, Y, and Z stuff as far as cross-questioning and do the discovery process and all that. And the defendants for the court developers is like, yo, this is wonky. Like, this is like, how is this even like going down like that? So the judge basically made it that Craig Wright had to pay the fees for the law team. That's not the fees, but because what is it? The core developers are being represented by what is the name of the thing again? They are being represented by the group thing that Jack Dorsey started, Cryptocurrency Open Patent Alliance, COPA, right? But they had other fees and things that they had to deal with. So the judge is forcing Craig Wright to pay for the other stuff because basically he's dragging out the legal process because he basically got the money to do that. And I remember this joint back in like 16, 17, like this was one of the things we were saying, like some of us were saying back then. It's like, yo, this is going to drag out. Like, and as long as he's persistent long enough on it, who knows how this is going to go. I honestly didn't think he was going to have the money to be going this long, y'all. Like, it's nearly 10 years. It's nearly 10 years. Granted, this particular court case is a new one that he put in, I think it was last year, and now it's getting pushed into next year. But he's done other court cases in multiple jurisdictions. So we'll see how this play out. I'm hoping he don't get this win. I'll be honest with y'all. Because if he get the win, if he gets, like, look at this, y'all. If he gets the win, but then he can't move the crypto. No. This way, or A way or B way. He gets the win in court. All it takes is one court. King be saying this shit all the time. All it takes is one court to acknowledge the situation. But then he can't move the crypto. What is that going to do to the space? What is that going to do to ETFs? If he gets it and then he can move it, which one of these things would be the bigger pro or negative to like the hardcore Bitcoin stuff? And then what would that do to the EFT market stuff? I'm not saying this as far as price talk stuff. I'm saying this as far as like, how will the space move forward between like the regular average Joe Bitcoin crypto person versus the governments and the traditional TradFi folks? Which one of these scenarios, because it can go either one of these ways, at least for the way this shit is dragging out, which one of these would hurt the regular folks or help the TradFi folks, or hurt the TradFi folks and help the regular folks? I don't know per se, because the TradFi folks is doing funky things too, y'all. But that's basically what happened with Craig Wright. So jumping into this story here, Turkey's Erdogan picks crypto professor. Oh man, I confused the story. All right, my mistake. The Argentina story is not the lady that this is the lady I was talking about, who I think is going to be their Gary Gensler. She was the academic who's being brought into the government to deal with the crypto stuff because she has, quote, the academic background in cryptocurrency, which is similar to Gary Gensler at his MIT days, right? They don't show a picture of this lady, but my thought process is this as far as what Turkey is doing in reorganizing or at least doubling down on their crypto position, their blockchain position. You all kind of understand what's going on as far as what the C state is doing with the BRI, which is Belt and Road Initiative, what's going on with the R state, and how they're maneuvering east into the U state. And it's a number of things playing out on a geopolitical level that makes me wonder what conversations happened in Turkey that they decided to bring this lady on to potentially be the one to ring in their regulatory stuff and like make it meet with the financial sector and the growing crypto activity. That's my thought process for this lady. I actually had to Google who she was because none of the articles I've seen actually showed who the lady was. But apparently she's been around. Granted, her Twitter account only started in 2020, but whatever. I'm not telling anybody, financial advice stuff. This is just like the doing due diligence and taking notes of what is going on in other countries. Turkey already beta tested their CBDC, aka Blue Dogs. I've been saying for months now, everyone's working to get their dog in the show. The CBDCs, Turkey already tested theirs. Now they're trying to do the part of ringing in how the blockchain crypto market is working via the exchanges. And I think that's where this lady fits in. I think she might be their version of a Gary Gensler. I'm not certain. Time will tell. This is just an indicator to me. It's not a trend or an official pattern. So, we'll see going forward, y'all. All right. So, after office raid, Bulgaria drops all charges against Nexo. All right. So, I don't remember actually catching when this happened, but the basic idea behind this was the exchange Nexo in Bulgaria got raided, and the authorities basically went through all of their shit. So they went through auditing, they went through the cyber side, they went through the legal work, they went through their accounting stuff, and it's like, oh, well, hey, you guys are pretty clean, man. Like, you've been doing a good job. They go into court, the auditors, the inspectors go into court and be like, yeah, we found no evidence of fraud, tax mess up, or cyber issues, da-da-da-da-da. The founder guy is like, this is literally what I said in the beginning. This was politically motivated. And then at the time, it turns out that X number of the employees of the exchange financially contributed to the opposite party of who's in charge, governmental wise. And this kind of brought the ire down on them because folks started making accusations about how, the terror folks were using their exchange to money launder and do things. And then it turns out, oh, they're actually clean. They're actually good. We can't prove anything using audits and cybersecurity tracing tactics. We can't show you any bad acting stuff here. All right, go about your business. Have a good day. We're watching the system being manipulated to scare people to turn away from digital privacy, as well as just like the whole thing of like how your voting stuff works. And for the folks who might look at this and be like, oh, what does that even matter? What does that even mean? That's over there. That's not over here. It was politically motivated to mess with the company. And now the government knows all of the ins and outs of your company. I expect there to be a round 2 for Nexo. Why? Because political people is professional petty, and they have long memories. Bureaucrats have long memories and are professionally petty. They will wait 2-3 years to mess with somebody on something. And so I look at this situation and I put it in certain regards to the stuff that we see happening here with the red-haired man, the orange-faced man. Folks are literally happy because he's going through the ringer to get disqualified from being put on state ballots. It's like, no, you're missing the point. The system is being manipulated to undermine your voting ability, to be able to freely choose who you as an American public person, American citizen, a voting citizen, is able to vote for who you freely choose, not who someone tells you have the option to choose. That's how the system is supposed to work. I'm gonna get off my horse right now because I nearly caught myself, y'all. I nearly caught myself. Anywho, that happened. I think we're going to hear more stories like this because, crazy enough, there's a number of elections that are happening like within now, next year, not just here in the US, but also in other countries. And this is the type of stuff that's being played out. Just saying. All right. What's the next one? Again, another story that goes into the whole thing of what I said about countries starting to play their thing for protectionism for their local economy, their local businesses, their local market stuff, right? And the bigger thing of, we don't want a financial system to grow too big and we can't touch somebody, right? So here it is. Nigeria is like, yeah, we're going to go back on what we said about the whole crypto bans thing. Mind you, crypto was still happening at the retail level. The regular folks were still doing a crypto thing. The government did not stop that. It was whether you were using your bank to be able to do stuff like go onto exchange as far as on-ramp or off-ramp, or move something that you got from an exchange into one bank and then push it over to another bank. Because you got to understand, when you go outside into these other countries, it's not uncommon for someone to have more than one bank. There are functions and features that you can do in other countries' banking systems that you can't do here. You could leave money at an ATM for somebody. Like, let that sink in. You can go to an ATM and leave money for someone to come pick up after, or like later on or whatever. It's a version of Western Union, but it's in the ATMs that you could do it that way. We don't have nothing nowhere near that here. And that was South Africa in Johannesburg when I first seen that. That shit blew my mind. But anywho, the point being is that the thought process with Nigeria and somebody who might be, more on the ground, put me on. I'm curious because a couple of other groups I'm in, I'm seeing a lot of chatter about the R state making business deals for development, as well as just bilateral trade stuff with a number of African countries. Case in point, the R state just did a deal with Ethiopia saying that they would open, what is it? They would build a data mining center that would have up to 30,000 S21 miners because they have the hydro dam in Ethiopia. So it's going to be, quote, all green energy. And I've been saying for more than a year, the R state is not anti-crypto. The C state is not anti-crypto. They've been changing these regulations. They've been making these bilateral trade deals, and we're starting to see stuff come through. So 2024 is going to be the pop-off year for a number of things. This is another example of, I think that there is another set of conversations why Nigeria made this change. I'm questioning if it has to do with the C state and R state presence maneuvering around in different kingdoms and like countries within the African continent. Because the business deals are definitely happening. Central African Republic, there's a number of deals going down there. And I've heard there's a number of Russian folks running around there. Point being is, I think there's something else going on that made this situation, made them turn about. We'll see as the year progresses, but I'm taking this as an indicator because of some other things that I have on the radar, right? Again, I take the Andrasian thought on this of the more interesting things that we're going to see pop off with crypto and blockchain in this latter half of the decade. It's not going to be here in the States. It's not going to be in first world, first tier countries. It's going to be in the other developing and / outside of the US, outside of North America, countries and areas. That's my take on it, and I'm stealing that off of Andreas Antonopoulos. Just throwing that out there. All right. So here is how we are ending it. Again, this is the theme of the overall show, to show that countries are going to use the taxes as a way to either encourage and incentivize corporations, companies, family trusts, and things along that line to come into their jurisdiction. And they'll do other things to disincentivize their retail level citizens to leave their jurisdiction in their crypto activity. Other thing to note, the idea that Japan is doing this, why? Because in the Asian region, what do you got going on? You got the deal that Singapore just made with the C state. You got what the C state is doing in Hong Kong with that sandbox project of putting in tokenized real world assets, fiat, gold, crypto, Bitcoin, like, next year, 2024, 2025 is going to look really amazing in that region. You got what South Korea is doing. You got what North K is doing. And so Japan is trying to figure out, or more so taking action to be like, all right, how do we keep these companies, these firms in our jurisdiction? And then how do we get the other ones to, hey, give us hey, we'll open up an office over there. That's what this is. This is protectionism as far as the local market stuff, because they don't want the companies to leave. They want them to stay, and they want the users of the country's jurisdiction to stay too. So arguably, this is protectionism via taxation, whether you're increasing it or decreasing it. It's still protectionism and a level of capital flight control. Like, I've been talking about capital flight control for more than a year now. Here we are, folks. Nonetheless, that's where we are. Oh shit, one more. All right, what was this last one? Oh, all right. Okay, so yeah, that's where we are. Those are the stories I got. Like I said, it was funny watching or going through, filtering through the news. It wasn't as many stories as I usually have to filter through. But it is what it is. Hopefully something I said gives you something to ask a question about, or gives you something to do some more due diligence on, or like just gives you an idea of like, oh, okay, wow, like this stuff is actually here to stay. Granted, I might not be happy with the implementations of how I see this stuff playing out, but in the bigger picture, it's like the technology is here to stay. And if you do the due diligence to understand how to access it and utilize it, you're going to be ahead of a lot of folks, because the newer folks coming in, and that's the point that, a matter of fact, Arthur Hayes was making in the first article that I covered. A lot of folks are going to go for the convenience factor as the higher priority for how they enter into the crypto space, how they acquire Bitcoin, how they understand it. So the point he was making about the major power money hubs vacuuming up the crypto to hold to make the ETF backings, he was saying how, I just remember the point, the convenience factor of the traditional, or the TradeFi folks pushing the ETF is going to appeal to the newer folks who never took time to understand the base end of Bitcoin or the base end of crypto, as far as it's supposed to be an open source peer-to-peer technology that allows you to transfer value. So if it's X amount too, quote, hard for you, here's the other easier way to do it with this ETF thing. You don't get the real asset. It's like paper or precious metals. You don't get the asset, but you can say that, quote, you're involved. And a lot of folks are going to get caught out there like that. A lot of folks. There was one last thing that I had wanted to jump in on about, it was IRS related. So again, this episode is brought to you by CJ the Smart Guy. He's a CPA. He's a super tax professional. The man knows his stuff. He's been in the space for a while. And in full disclosure, he is my CPA. But I will say there is no kickback. I'm not getting a discount. I'm not giving you all no referral codes. It's literally just his link to Linktree for you to like do a consulting thing with him or go to his website and get stuff done. Okay. I'm not saying this as you have to choose him or you should use him. I'm saying if you need a resource because you've been playing around in the space, there is going to be in the link. It's going to be in the description for this. The other thing is, damn, what was the other thing? I totally forgot. But nonetheless, it's the Christmas day. Hopefully you guys are in a safe, well, as I say, in a safe place, in a safe space, in a good company. But before that, I say have a P over B day. And if it can't be that, at least be in a safe place and in a safe place and in good company. I'm wishing that for everybody from one human to the next. And other than that, y'all, one.